Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and this is my brutally honest review for Silent Hill F, because this is a project I think that a lot of fans have been excited but terrified of, because it is strange to think of this, but this is technically the first new Silent Hill game we've gotten since 2012. Like, of course, we had the masterpiece, which was the Silent Hill 2 remake, but Silent Hill F is a completely new story in a different area. It's not even technically connected to Silent Hill. And in a lot of ways, this game is downright terrifying. It is beautiful. It is fantastic. But I have to admit that I don't really understand why it's called Silent Hill. But let's get into it. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's see if we can get this video to 2,000 likes. So first and foremost, what is Silent Hill F, and why is it that everything seems so unique? You know, in a lot of the other Silent Hill games, it's always been directly connected or inside of Silent Hill. Different people, different cults, different monsters. There was a lot of stuff that basically was people dealing with the terror of that specific town. Whereas F, this new game takes place in the 1960s in Japan. We're playing as a young girl named Hinako, and she's basically, her and her friends are just hanging out one day when this strange fog rolls in. And when it does, it spreads some sort of madness, some sort of parasite, some sort of living fungus that covers the entire town, and basically anybody it touches gets killed and turned into a monster. Now, this actually brings me to the first thing that I think works exceptionally well in Silent Hill F, which is the fact that what always made Silent Hill such a different style of terror than other games is that there's a different style of horror to all sorts of different series. There's survival horror, there's jump scare horror, there's spooky horror, right? Whereas Silent Hill, it's always done psychological horror. That idea of nightmare logic, looping rooms that don't make sense, everybody seems completely insane. They actually completely mastered that in Silent Hill F. The monsters are so freaky, they're so bulbous, they're so messed up. Weird, creepy marionettes, weird like monsters coming out of the fog, or scarecrows coming alive to try and cut you with their knife hands. I mean, this game is so good about it, but to keep with the psychological nature, a lot of the monsters that you encounter in some of the areas will talk in the voice of your friends. So what makes this game so good, that I think is one of the strongest narrative choices, is that you're not alone. And technically, for a large portion of this game, you're actually hanging out with your friends. You're getting to communicate. You're trying to escape together. You're trying to just get out of town. Your plan is, all right, we're not abandoning people, but we have to get out in order to get help, to help the adults, to help anybody that's still alive and probably trapped. But you also encounter some mythological style people, like some sort of fox-like guy who keeps trying to help you in the other world. Throughout Silent Hill F, the whole game is basically broken into two separate chunks, the way a lot of Silent Hill games are, right? Typically, you have the normal mortal world, it's daylight, it's sunny, and there are still monsters, but people seem at least partially sane, right? Whereas when you go to the other world, that's where things are perpetually locked in darkness, where everything is incredibly just shadowy and messed up, and a lot of stuff is just straight up more impossible. Weird winding gauntlets and terrifying puzzles and people getting dipped in lava and stuff, right? Well, what I like about this is that the other world in this game, it has a very different set of rules. Let's talk about the combat, and then I can break down what makes the light worlds and the other worlds so dang weird in this game. So combat in this, I've seen some people trying to say it's very Dark Souls-y because it has a stamina meter and a dodge button. I'll be honest, it does not feel Dark Souls-y at all. Look, I am obsessed with Dark Souls and I am obsessed with Silent Hill. And look, this is not a Reese's Pieces situation. Those two ain't mixing right here, baby, right? So the way this works is that in combat, enemies can be stunned. They can be staggered. In this game, you have three separate styles of attack that are all very crucial depending on the scenario. There's a focus attack, a fast attack, and a strong attack. Focus attacks are definitely the hardest to do. You basically have to charge up a super big hit that actually costs a bit of your sanity, but if you land that hit, it's very, very tough. Whereas fast attacks and strong attacks, they're exactly what they sound like. Fast attacks cost almost no stamina. You could just really wail on people, but they don't ever stagger, they don't ever stun. Whereas the heavy attack will stun pretty much everybody but the biggest, baddest bosses, right? So it's an interesting mix where a lot of times it's about trying to get in there, trying to land a heavy attack, and then maybe sneak in a couple really fast attacks and then sneaking away, trying to dodge. Your stamina meter is pretty dang small. Now, when you dodge, you can also do perfect dodges. If somebody's about to hit you and you dodge at the last second, it will completely refill your entire stamina meter instantly. So it makes this cool mechanic where, honestly, you can be very, very, very aggressive. You can stay in their face, but there is a cost to it. A lot of these enemies, if you stay too close, they'll start to do crazier, more offensive attacks themselves. They'll do more combos. They'll try and shred you a lot faster. And a lot of them do a lot of freaking damage. This is the thing, is that honestly, one enemy at a time, tough, but not impossible. Two enemies at a time, still sort of doable. But above that, it's pretty much a slaughter. So because of it, this game is very much about trying to avoid fighting as much as possible, much like other Silent Hills. If you can run, you absolutely should run because your weapons degrade. Items are very, very limited. You can actually, if you break a weapon, there is a repair kit, but a lot of times, honestly, you have to be extremely conservation friendly. You have to constantly be thinking about, okay, which fights are the most crucial? Because I did have a couple times where I got to a boss and my weapons were beat up. I didn't have a lot of healing kits, and it was not a good time. It was very, very rough. But that brings me back to the otherworld. So there's a lot of puzzles in this game, all sorts of intricate multi-step things where you're trying to find keys or trying to find puzzles or trying to find like different solutions written on notes. But when you go to the otherworld, here, enemies infinitely respawn. So it makes it where, honestly, this is my primary gripe with the game, is that a lot of the puzzles, in my opinion, are very, very, very hard. I'm not going to lie. Even if you actually know what you're doing, a lot of the puzzles are multi-step, very, very detail intensive. The puzzles in this game are actually difficult. And since enemies keep coming back to life over and over and over again, unless you kill them in a particular way, it makes it where with a lot of these puzzles, you're perpetually almost feeling rushed to solve them so you don't end up running out of supplies or running out of weapons before you actually get to the next area. Now, thankfully, in the otherworld, they give you infinite weapons. They give you weapons that don't break, which is very, very necessary since the enemies are infinite respawning. Now, in certain spots of the otherworld, there will be these strange blue lanterns. If you kill a monster near the blue lantern, they don't respawn. They actually finally disintegrate, which makes it where a lot of these maps, because they are so winding, it becomes very strategic. Draw an enemy one at a time into the blue room, kill them, and then progress. Get the next key, get the next item, and then go back towards that next big progression. And I gotta say that this game manages to do something I didn't expect. This, I think, might be the most terrifying Silent Hill. The Silent Hill 2 remake, I think, maybe edges it out a tiny bit because I do think, honestly, the heavy, heavy darkness and that tiny little flashlight that we used in Silent Hill 2 remake was so good. But here, wandering around through these dark otherworld hallways with a little tiny paper lantern, it's very terrifying and it's very, very unnerving, and you never really adapt to that terror. It's kind of strange to think about, but Silent Hill F has perhaps the most fun Silent Hill combat we've ever gotten, which typically in a lot of horror games, I feel like they try to make a lot of the combat purposely difficult, purposely terrifying. If the enemies can rip you apart, it definitely makes every single encounter a lot more intense. And I feel like they managed to do that in a way where you still look forward to it. I never actually felt like running away if I didn't have to. It was fun to dodge and fight and figure things out, to test out a new enemy, especially because a lot of these designs of monsters are so dang messed up. I like both the overworld, the light world, the dark world. I think they all look great, but this does bring me to the one major complaint I have. I'm going to give this a very high score. I'm not going to pretend it's a bad game. I think this game looks fantastic, but my one thing is that I do wish this tied more directly to Silent Hill. And that's just a personal preference. I am a very old school fan of Silent Hill. I've been playing them since the very, very start. I've gotten every ending of every game. I've played them on every platform, even the very terrible remasters they did on PlayStation 3. But my thing is that this feels very disconnected. Like it has certain themes that are repeated, but there doesn't really seem to be any references to the cult. That's a big problem in Silent Hill. There's none of the talks about gods from the otherworld in the same way. It's a very, very tenuous connection. Now, I say this with love. I just wished it connected a bit more directly because I do like that each of the Silent Hill games built upon this mythos. Like when you're playing Silent Hill 4, they are referencing Silent Hill 2. When you're playing Silent Hill 3, they're referencing Silent Hill 1. I like that carry through where it's not necessary to enjoy the game, but I like that reward for fans to get something extra out of the story. Now, before I actually played this game, I even read the books. The guy who wrote this game is a dude who wrote this series called Higurashi When They Cry. And I read his series. I think his series is very, very great. And a lot of these series, they very much have a lot of branching paths and alternate endings, even though it is a manga, right? This game has 5 separate endings, and you can only get the bad ending on the first playthrough, but each subsequent playthrough, the game changes a bit. By stopping at shrines and leaving items, leaving sacrifices and stuff, you get currency called faith. You can upgrade yourself as you find different hidden stuff. By going to these shrines, you can buy permanent upgrades to your health or your inventory or your entire stamina system and stuff like that. The following playthroughs are changed by some of that stuff, and you get additional items that lead to extra endings, extra bosses, extra stuff that makes subsequent playthroughs much, much, much different. They said the whole theme of this game, the idea behind this game is find beauty in terror. And I think they nailed that. But I do have to admit that I wish that this at least made some nods to the greater Silent Hill universe, because at this point, as good as this game is, I'm not sure if it's mainline, I'm not sure if it's spin-off, but just in general, it feels very disconnected in a way that as a fan, I wish it just tied in a bit. I don't know. These are some off-the-cuff thoughts. Let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Silent Hill F a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh man, this game is so messed up. Oh, y'all are not ready. If y'all buy this game, you specifically are not ready.